miss the laughter.
I know. I'm hoping to make it back in September. I feel I'm going to book a flight and risk it at this point.
Oh, that would be great.
I know. Anyway, Jason, what did you want to ask us?
Yeah, so I'm going to just do a quick little bit of introduction for everyone. So you know, Liz, I think I shared this, but we've been, since COVID hit especially, we've been doing a weekly house church training for our shepherds. And we're walking through mainly the vehicles that we use. One of the biggest things that has always been an issue is just house churches, because of history here in church in America, can very easily drift towards, you know, meal and a Bible study. And then people check that off and they're like, okay, we've done house church, even though we're vitally and, you know, strongly working against that constantly. That is the drift where things go. And so I know Mike and Sally have been really trying to address that as well. And then obviously we have, you know, for a very long time, but just getting to talk with Sally and then and chatting with Mike a little bit, you know, he encouraged us to get you two together just to share about your experiences with house church, missional community, obviously for you all, and the texture of that. And just, you know, not having a clown car approach that can sometimes often happen, of trying to shove everything into a small experience as opposed to living that family on mission and how we foster that family on mission. So we're recording this right now. And just so you guys are aware, this is Liz Lovell. She's from Sheffield and is married to John. How long have you guys been married?
36 years, coming up to 36 years.
Great. And this is obviously Sally, everyone, as you guys know. I had the chance to meet Liz and John in their home. I think about 3 or 4 years ago. I was doing some training at Sheffield with a friend named Caesar and his wife Tina, and they were staying there. And I was just this, you know, younger pastor kid who was just brought along, and just experienced when I was there a fresh taste of just missional community, house church life that was extremely encouraging for me. Stayed with the Lovells in their home. Hospitality was out the roof. It was just absolutely
poor. It's always poor at the Lovells. Poor.
And they live in this beautiful, like, estate, you know, type home that's there within, you know, the city of Sheffield. That's kind of on its own little corner, like the type of home like to go into that, or you imagine everyone in England, you know, wanting to live in. So it was a really great time. And so just wanted to get you guys together, if it's cool, just a few questions talking through about yourself, just the texture of house church life, and then what guiding principles you live by, and just kind of closing out with any encouragement during this season of life that we're in. Hey, there's your word, Sally.
I was going to say, you said the word. Okay. Just said the word.
Saying like how we're done with words. And so just tell us a little bit about yourselves, your story, your friendship, and just kind of like your love for Jesus and how that drives you missionally. Just introduce us to yourselves.
You go first, Liz.
Okay, I was born in India. My parents were born in India and they were missionaries in India. And my dad was a doctor. We came to the UK when I was 5, and my dad did some more study, and then he moved to another place, and I came to Sheffield as a student to study to be a teacher. I think my background was the thing that my father gave me especially, but both parents, was life was not separated into work and church and work and play. It was a 24/7 life, and it was rich and varied, and you could include anybody in anything. Yes, it was a rich life, and Jesus was at the center of it. One thing I do remember is my father always kept chilled champagne in case somebody came who we needed to celebrate. And he loved celebrating with others, and I think I've got that. It's like the Christian life is about celebrating, even celebrating some of the difficult things can become celebrations. So I'm a teacher, married to John, been a member of St Thomas's and the St Thomas's churches since I've been in Sheffield. We have 2 grown-up children. My daughter Susie is a social worker in Sheffield and extremely busy at the moment with COVID, because there are lots of difficult situations for her to deal with. My son Sam married a Norwegian, lives in Norway, and they have 2 children, and our latest granddaughter was born last week, and we're looking forward to getting there somehow to see her. So in a nutshell, that's us.
Sally, feel free.
No. I was born in Manchester. No, I was born in Sheffield to wonderful parents who were, in a sense, similar but not Christians. So they were very inclusive of anybody. They celebrated well, like Liz said. They were just generous, open-hearted people. I mean, a little revolutionary and a little radical, which is always good. And they taught me to have an open house and an open heart. And I think that then marrying Mike, we both applied that to the rest of our lives. Basically, we included Jesus and our faith and all of that stuff and the ministry into that. But the basic principle is that you don't live in compartmentalized areas of your life. Everything is fluid and flexible and growing, and it's messy, it's complicated, but we're in it all together and we're all trying to do the best we can. What was that frown for, Liz?
What was that what called?
What was the frown for, I said.
The frown, my frown. Yeah, it was messy.
Yeah, it was messy. And I met Liz when we moved to Sheffield for Mike to take up the position of vicar of St Thomas's, and I thought that she looked like fun. I thought she didn't look too serious, which is a high value in my life. And we have consequently seen each other through our children going from, Sam was 4, your son was 5, wasn't it? But we both have sons called Sam who became really good friends. From our children being 5 to 36.
Yep.
And so we've seen each other through a whole load of different stages. We have ranted and raved and cried and laughed and sat in cars, like we were saying earlier, and we prayed. We walked around the neighborhood praying for the house that John and Liz now live in, because they were in a much smaller house and wanted a house to do more ministry in. And I can remember walking early in the morning and praying that one of the houses that were bigger, that were actually just at the bottom of our road, would come available, and it did. And they've been living there and using that house for mission ever since. So yeah, so it's great.
I think that's a really, we can talk about missional community and house church life, but can you talk a little bit more, either of you, about using home as a mission base and just what you've learned over the years, what you might have to pass on to others?
I think a home is your primary mission base, and I think I felt that when I had a home of my own before I was married and I was single. I believe a home is wherever you live and how you make it home, and it's your mission base. And it can be whether you live with other young adults or on your own or in a family, or if it's a blended family, it's your mission base. And basically you just include people and other people in it, so it doesn't become too religious. The thing I don't like is if we make it religious. Mission for me is just including people in whatever you do in life. So if they happen to be there, include them.
So you point out something really interesting there, and inviting people in, being, you know, incarnational, kind of like that Christianese word there. Help define for me what you mean by like being too religious when you open your home. Because I'm tracking with you, but you know, I think what you're after is very key for getting to the missional heartbeat.
Okay, I think if somebody is drawn to you, or you recognize that somebody on your street or somebody you've met seems to like you, and I am following Jesus, and somebody likes me and wants to be with me, then they don't realize it, but they are beginning to follow Jesus.
Hang on. Oh, there we are. Come back. It's on a timer. Sorry.
So if they're following me, they are inadvertently following Jesus. So I can invite them around to my house and have a cup of coffee and a chat and laugh. And I don't feel I have to meet Jesus or have an open Bible on the table to make a point. Because I think sometimes as Christians we feel we ought to say this, or we ought to talk about church, or how do we get them to church, or when am I going to say, is there a need in your life that I can pray for? And it all becomes a bit awkward. And basically we're just making friends. They like us, we like them, and it can go from there.
Yeah, totally. I do think that if you have an agenda, people suspect that very quickly. Whereas if you're just saying, "Why don't you come and have a meal with us?" you know, or just come round, and it's very open, and you're just integrating them into the life that you already have, which is your Christian faith, your Christian walk. It'll naturally take place. And if they take 10 years to ask you a spiritual question, the 10 years hasn't been wasted. I think we're so, particularly in America, I think we're driven by results, and I don't think it's clear what the results are. I think we're way too defined about what we think Jesus wants as results. You know what I mean? It's like he says, you know, someone's got to pray the prayer and do this and do that, and this is like big tick list, whereas actually I think we're just meant to be real people living a real life in a real way with Jesus.
I think with that, just trusting that, you know, the Spirit of God dwelling in us and making himself through us, through our love and our friendship and our charity, is the most powerful testament that we have to give to people. Which is what I hear you saying, Liz, in that regard, of just like, it doesn't have to be through, you know, an open Bible or this religious behavior in my home. It's literally, you know, the shared love at the table, and in the conversation.
Or even the shared arguments, or even the shared child slamming the door, or even the, you know, it's all of that. I mean, wouldn't you agree, Liz? It's just being real. Like, you know, you've had, I know, around your kitchen table, loads of conversations when your child, as a teenager, has stomped in and thrown the backpack at the floor. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And I've had, you know, times when bedroom doors have been slammed so hard all the pictures have fallen off the walls. I shan't tell you which child that was. But do you know what I mean? It's like, it's not hiding that. It's just like, oh, it's all part of this. It's just, you know, and it's not about having something special to eat or drink or do any of those things. It's about being hospitable and having time and listening and, you know, including people.
Yeah, I think I think we feel as Christians we've got to have the perfect family or the perfect life, or that we cope with everything ever so well. And I think that's very off-putting for people, because none of us live the perfect life.
Oh, I
And,
do live.
well, I know you do, Sally, yeah.
I'm perfect.
And people can often say, oh, I'm really glad you have struggles like that. I thought I was on my own. I thought, you know, and you're a Christian. Well, yeah. The thing that may be different is I've got a deeper relationship with Jesus because I've known him longer, but my kids still misbehave. My husband and I still argue. We still have our problems. And that's normal. But we do have a relationship with Jesus.
So you guys have done a really good job, and I really appreciate it, as far as like how that texture in the family, in the home, as a mission base, you know, develops you as, you know, a disciple. How, when you're inviting now people into missional community experience, into, you know, for us, we use the language of house church. How do you, like, what does that maintenance look like of that? You know, whether it's through daily rhythms, weekly rhythms, monthly rhythms that you have, you know, and I think here, like Liz, what I'd love to hear is just kind of, what does your, you know, missional community experience look like as you have people in your home? And then Sally, you as well, but then also perhaps Sally, maybe a little critique or adjustment that our house churches ought to hear, as what you guys say. Okay. So Sally, yeah, go ahead.
You go, Liz. You're going first.
Okay. One of the first missional communities, it was actually one that Mike asked me to lead, was of young adults, and they were creatives. And I do love creatives, but to be honest, I'm slightly scared of them because they're a bit weird. And I was 40 something and they were all in their early 20s and quite arty and creative. And I knew I was meant to do this. And I remember one Sunday morning, once a month, they would come to our house and we'd have croissants and get newspapers in, and they would just chill for the morning, basically. That's all they did. And they all felt very free to bring their artist friends in. And they were probably the group who were the most free to bring outsiders in. And I remember standing in our kitchen thinking, well, Lord, if you told me this is what I would be doing, I would never have believed you. This is way out of my comfort zone, but I love it. So that was one, and it was very fruitful, and I think it modeled to other people that they could do it. I've been in quite a few communities. Most of the best examples is, again, when we have a lot of fun. So we have WhatsApp groups and we send each other not just Bible verses on a bad day, but send funny videos, you know, like James Corden or stuff like that. Send people things to laugh at, send people jokes. We share funny photographs. So you're doing life with people. Yes, we do have meals and we do study the Bible, but it's much more, we occasionally have a Bible study, but it's much more sitting around the table, all sharing something to give thanks for, and then maybe one thing for prayer. And that's an easy thing to invite people who are not yet Christians into, because anybody can do that. A lot of celebrating people's birthdays and all that stuff. You know, your child has got married, we celebrate that with each other. You know, we've got a new granddaughter and people from our community came round with some champagne and we sat at opposite end of the garden and shared. And that to me was, okay, even in COVID, we can celebrate with each other. So does that give you some?
Yeah, when you guys say gather, Yeah, when you guys gather, so there's a lot of just touch points that organic ones that you're
Yeah.
describing. So on your more organized evenings, when you do gather, like there you go, Sally, wave your hands. When you guys do, for those who are just listening to the audio right now and you guys hear us, it's Sally's lights are on a timer, and so she has to
Wave my hands every so. I ought to get up and move around every so often.
So, Liz, so describe, like, on those more organized evenings, like what is that experience like? You mentioned the croissant with the kids, but like, say, with more adults or mixed family experience.
The croissant was with adults. They were in their 20s. They weren't.
Okay.
Yes, the croissants was with adults. Yes.
I'm just excited I said croissant as opposed to crescent.
Croissant.
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 Sorry, I said it right.
Well, we will gather and have a drink and share stuff that's been going on for all of us. And then at the moment, the community I'm in is led by a very gifted Bible teacher. So we do have some Bible input quite a lot of the time. There's always an element of sharing and praying for each other. And we try to make sure that if there is Bible teaching, there is some point that comes out of it, which is about how we're going to live our life following on from that teaching, rather than it just being, some more knowledge. Last night we had community, and because most of us are still in lockdown, it was a Zoom call with all of us, and it was only an hour long. We're making sure that they're only an hour long because we're finding it quite tiring to keep on with all the Zoom calls. So the leader just put us in rooms with 2 or 3 other people for 25 minutes. We shared, we prayed for each other. Then we came back. He did a little bit of teaching on the Trinity, because next Sunday is Trinity Sunday. He said the blessing and we left. And but again, it was quite fun. You could have invited other people into it, I think. So that's what's happening now. Other things we do, especially during seasonal times like Advent, Lent, we might have an evening where it's usually me, because it's my heart to do some stuff which is slightly different spirituality from what we would normally do. So, and easily accessible for others, where we might listen to some music, maybe some classical music, read some scriptures or some liturgy, just have some silence to consider things. We will light a candle.
When I say there has to be a lit candle, there has to be a lit candle.
There has to be a lit candle, yeah. And we end that with maybe having some mulled wine. And I think the seasons and the festivals are really important, because as Christians, we think we know what they are. People who are not Christians think they know what it's about, but they don't. So they're very used to all the presents and the Christmas trees, but doing something slightly more thought-provoking and quiet goes against the flow of those festivals. And often people will say, oh, that was really lovely. It was quiet and it felt spiritual. It made me feel good. One example is last Christmas we had a family round. This was not in our community, but it was in our community because we tend to include, people in our community would have heard about it. We had a family round. They were not yet Christians, although the grandmother went to church, and we had an Advent meal with them on the first Sunday of Advent. And all we did was, before the meal, I said, if you don't mind, it's the first Sunday in Advent, I'm going to light some candles, and we're just going to listen to a carol. And it was O Come, Emmanuel. And That's all we're going to do. And then we'll start them. John will say grace and we'll start the meal. And honestly, you'd have thought they'd won the lottery, because they all said, oh, that was amazing. Oh, it felt like we took us back to what Christmas was really about. And it was so easy. It was so easy. I felt I'd cheated. It was glorious. So there we go. Just
Sounds like over your experience within missional community life, you've had various shapes and expressions of what that community is. And I would imagine much that has to do with, you know, like you said, the giftings that are present in that community, and you know, just what it is that the Lord had for that community at that time. Sally, I know I have plenty of questions. Sally, what about you? Like your, you know, missional community experiences, the texture of the evening that you've experienced, the ones that you've enjoyed, the ones that you've personally struggled with.
I think that probably the thing that Mission Community House Church, whatever you want to call whatever the group is that gathers, has to be easy for everyone. I feel like there's a herd of elephants above me, but apart from that, I feel like we often make it too complicated and not easy for people to get access into our homes. And so I know, you know, we learned this together, you know, like if you are constantly having lots of people in your home, there is nothing wrong with having 2 dishwashers so that it makes it easy. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, no, that's one of the things that absolutely, I think I even asked you about that specifically, Liz, was we were at dinner one night. I noticed like you had 2 washers, and then the Nick and Jenny in Liverpool, Harding had 2 dishwashers.
yeah.
And I was just like, is this like a common theme for everyone?
It is, because it makes it, it's right. Like,
especially when you're
like, what can you do practically to make this as easy as possible? Do people know where all the mugs are? Do they know where to put their shoes? Do they know? And no, it doesn't sound, it's not very spiritual, but it means that then people aren't thinking or feeling uncomfortable, or aren't, oh no, what do we have to do? Where do we put our coats? So you have to be clear and make it as accessible as possible. So I'm like, I think we tend to concentrate on like the Bible study and not on the other stuff, that then means people don't have time to listen to God. They don't have time to just sit quietly and reflect, or you know, enjoy looking at the lit candle, because they're like, oh, you know, is my child okay? I think, you know, there has to be some clear leadership when people come in a very subtle way. So Liz and John, everyone knows that, you know, where their coffee and tea is and where their mugs are and where to put their shoes and, you know, all of those things, and how to stack the dishwasher, because it makes people feel comfortable and easy. And I think we don't spend enough time on that, making our houses accessible, comfortable, easy. And I don't mean beautiful, I don't mean amazing, I mean tiny houses. We have done missional community in tiny houses, in tiny ways, single people who only have one room in a shared house, making it easy and warm and hospitable. And I mean warm, I don't mean just warm, but that is good because Sheffield is freezing and Ohio it's freezing. But I meant like thinking like, how am I going to make this person feel comfortable when they enter the home? And then what texture, I mean, I'm big into texture at the moment. Like what attractive things that don't cost money, a few twigs from outside in a jug on the table, look like you've anticipated somebody coming, and a candle from Target is not a big deal. But it does make people feel welcome and loved and like you've anticipated them coming in. And I think that we haven't really grasped the fact that people taking everything about our homes, which includes, it's fine if the toilet is dirty. It's not about the cleanliness or the perfectness, which isn't a word, but you know what I mean, of the home. It's about the fact that real people live here, that love each other and love Jesus, and they're inclusive. Do you know what I'm saying? I mean, you do know what I'm saying, Liz.
Yeah. I think the word simplicity, it sounds like having 2 dishwashers isn't simplicity. But I think we model simplicity with poverty.
Yes.
And simplicity for me is having 2 dishwashers so that it's easy to clear the decks so that we can get down to chatting around the table. It's not so exhausting that I think I never want to do this again. And simple food, like there are lots of homes in Sheffield now which, having come to my house, they will go and buy a ready cooked chicken. There's a certain shop which does ready cooked chicken, which is tasty, a bag of salad and some nice French bread. And you have not cooked it all, and that's fine. You could have some fresh flowers on the table, but simplicity of the food. It's not about marvelous food, it's simplicity. Not that it's second rate, but finding ways of doing it, which means you can do it again and you welcome doing it again, rather than thinking, I'm not a good cook, I'm not a good homemaker, I'm tired at the end of the day, I can't do it.
And people can easy. That, can't they, Liz? Everyone can go and buy a cooked chicken, a bag of salad and some French bread. I mean, it's like, it doesn't matter if, you know, what your status is, what your circumstances are, everyone can do that.
And I think one of the things, I mean, I've hosted house churches for years, and in my early years, it was very much that, and I don't even like that word hosting, because it has that connotation of me having everything in a place of perfection. And I know the lesson that I learned through that was just like, is the point people coming to my home, or is the point, and I'm not wording this correctly, or is the point people feeling welcomed? And I think when you have that mentality of having people welcomed, where it is a little bit more like, you know, what you're describing of this, you know, just this open space. I remember that was one thing that I began noticing about my sister, because she does a really good job of hosting house church. And it was that she always has a candle. She always has a candle. There's always something that's fresh, you know, in the bathroom. Her bathroom wasn't always clean, you know, to the nines. Things were straightened up. There were always, you know, an invitation to help out. Like the entire evening was the experience, as opposed to this bit and that bit are the experience. And then you have these booking things that people don't participate in as well, you know, as opposed to, you know, I know when I host it, I use dishes. I don't have a dishwasher, but I do it in a way where it's very simple, and we sit around and we do the dishes together after. But that's an intentional thing, and when I do host it, it's like a reminder of like, hey, if you're coming but it was too like, okay, if we don't want to do the dishes, then I'm fine with getting paper plates. I'm not a huge fan of that, you know, from, you know, a waste perspective, but that's just my conviction. But so we can do that instead. But I think the simplicity, I know the way Mike talks about it is sharp beginnings and ragged endings. I think are really key. You guys
it's important to make it, even if you're doing paper plates, it doesn't mean it's not nice. You know, by having some coloured napkins folded ready on the paper plates, you can raise paper plates to a different level.
That's great.
Because I think it is important to make the house feel welcoming and not totally chaotic.
Totally, absolutely, because otherwise that's bad.
Yeah. No, that's great. I think for me too, as a single guy who's not necessarily, you know, natural towards these things, you know, just thinking through this, like if you're listening to this and you're a single guy, or maybe not even a single guy, you might be more is always like getting these type of, you know, it's a learned thing as well, you know, with a lot of this stuff, for those of us who may not be natural at it. And so just don't think that you can't just never do it. Like, you know, go the extra step, try it out. It's, again, it's not like about perfection, as we've been saying, it's about hospitality. You
can do the same thing every week.
Yeah.
You don't have to, you know, if something works, if it's a chicken every Wednesday, let it be a chicken every Wednesday. And that could be the mark of the group, if you know what I mean. You don't have to change it all. There are certain things about Sally's house and mine which are distinctive of us, and they know that it'll be the same every time they come. So there is a thing about being yourself and thinking, what is the thing that is me that I bring? Because when you're inviting people to your home, you're inviting them into who you are. So what do they remember of your place and the way you do things, that is about you and is distinctive to you?
So you both have had some principles that have come through. You've mentioned simplicity. What are other principles that you just take to heart when you think about inviting others into your home and having people over for house church missional community life?
Well, there's the main thing for me is up, in and out, relationship with God. Are we doing that? Are we building each other up together? And are we reaching out to people who are not yet followers of Jesus? That one's always the hard one, because it's much easier to just sit with the people you know every week because you know them and it feels comfortable. And I think it's easier to start with having a variety of things, like we're going to have a cinema evening. Invite friends. Some of us are going to the cinema, we're going to see a film, invite some friends to that. They can come back for coffee or going out for a drink and then going home. So bringing them into your home may not be the first thing. It's bringing them into your life or going into their lives. So we've found recently that with COVID, we are joining in with other people's initiatives much more. So, and we're in our community, we're encouraging each other to join in with the initiatives of the communities that we live in. So our neighbours have a WhatsApp group, and we join things that they're doing. So, you know, we do things on the street together. So we were clapping for the NHS. One girl wanted some help with teaching her kids and needed some books. So we took books across to her. And I think sometimes joining other people's initiatives is really important.
That's really good. Anything for you, Sally? Any?
I think, I mean, obviously it's up, in and out. I mean, that's been, you know, the thing we live by. But I think keeping it simple, up, in and out, and keeping it real. Keep it real. Don't put on a front. I mean, we've said it in lots of different ways. So just keep it real. And it, you know, it's real through all the stages of your life. It's real for wherever you are. It's real in whatever situation you're in. I mean, I've lived and done missional communities in every type of possible environment, you know, tough neighborhoods, suburban neighborhoods, places that are foreign to me, places that are very familiar, everywhere. And I think the thing that people always, I hope they're left with, and they have said on occasions, is that that you're real. I was still who I am when we worked in the city of Brixton, where that wasn't my natural environment, you know, huge amounts of poverty and racial discrimination and all those things. And I didn't feel embarrassed that I had a home that looked like the home that I grew up in. It did have a dishwasher and it did have nice plates and it, you know, all of those things. But nobody minded that. They didn't think I don't have that because I was real. I was real to who I was. I wasn't putting on a front. I wasn't trying to be like them. I was trying to understand and walk with them, but I wasn't trying to be like them. And so here in America, we love America, we love Americans, but I'm still English. I still am English. You know, if you come into our home, in lots of ways, it's a European home. It's not an American home. And that's real. I haven't tried to be somebody different. And I think that's, you know, really key. So wherever you are, if you are living out of your natural environment, still be true to who you are.
Very good. Well, this has been very good. Any last final words of encouragement to share? Anything that just, you know, imagine other, you know, young families or, you know, even people your own age, you know, listening right now, as, you know, we'll watch this and then we'll get together and chat about it. Any last final words of encouragement?
Make it fun. I had a lovely story from one of our young adult groups this week who had something one evening called Quipple, and it was a Zoom call, and all the young adults in the group invited friends to join in, and it was a quiz thing, and they all had a little drink while they were doing the quiz. And I think they had 8 couples who were not yet Christians who joined in, who said, if you're doing anything like this again, we would love to be part of it. You know, it was not a Bible study. It was people joining your fun life. It must be fun, otherwise who wants to join it?
Yep.
Yeah, I think my words would be, just give it a go. Don't overthink it. Just do something. I mean, I know it's a very, you know, well-used expression, but just do something, because you don't know what will work, what will be your easy place to do it, all of those things. Don't get stuck with overthinking it. Just do something, because more times than anything, when I thought, oh, I don't really want to do that, or I don't really, and I've just done it, honestly, the fruit of it and the response from people has always been huge. And so it's just encouraging, just do something. It changes everyone's life. Everyone is looking for somebody to connect with them, everybody. And so that's it.
Well, thank you very much. We just lost Liz somehow. Liz, are you there?
Oh, there, you come back.
You disappeared there for a minute. Well, thank you both so much. Thank you for your years of ministry and simple and helpful ways. And thank you for sharing that with us on this call. And I'm looking forward to the way that it can impact our communities. So thanks again. And I'm sure we'll see each other soon. Liz, I think we've lost you in regards to phone. With that, thanks. I'll just say.
I'm going to say bye-bye. Bye.
All right. Goodbye. Thank you again so much.